section of all of these feelings, and just to be there with everybody, and to sit in the audience and to hear people applaud, and to hear people.
Life at home has been a tough adjustment lately, but overall it's been good. I have 2 other daughters and my oldest is completely in love with the baby. We tease each other all the time. After I gave birth, he joked, "Oh my gosh, if I ever lost you and took our 3 kids to the park, it'd be like something old, something borrowed, something blue, something new." I'm wearing her stuff all over, tons of Bodhi pieces. Even the suit I've got on now is Bodhi. This is Popreme, and a major development is unfolding right now. What began as a seemingly straightforward showbiz dispute between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni has exploded into a full-blown legal battle with higher stakes than anyone expected. According to a wave of recent reports, Blake Lively could be facing a potential 5-year prison sentence if rumors that she manipulated or misrepresented evidence are proven in court. This jaw-dropping revelation has sent shockwaves through Hollywood, forcing the industry to reckon with how a project once celebrated for its promise of deep storytelling and cinematic brilliance. They could descend into such chaos, especially when one of its most beloved stars may now be staring at serious legal consequences. At the center of this controversy is the film adaptation of the best-selling novel It Ends With Us, when Justin Baldoni, a director known for emotional and resonant storytelling, announced he would bring the book to the big screen. Excitement was palpable. Fans and moviegoers eagerly anticipated seeing its themes of personal growth, love, and resilience come to life. Baldoni seemed like the perfect fit, with a proven ability to craft stories that truly connect with audiences. Then came the casting of Blake Lively, famous for balancing humor and drama. She was widely considered ideal to portray the novel's complex lead character. It all looked like a recipe for cinematic success. Early in production, everything appeared to run smoothly. Baldoni and Lively praised each other in interviews, stressing their shared commitment to honoring the source material and capturing the novel's emotional core. But once filming began, the first cracks appeared. Rumors spread that the two were clashing over the film's creative direction, particularly how faithfully it should stick to the book's serious, heartfelt tone. Lively's team reportedly pushed for a more modern approach, adding comedic elements and bold fashion choices to boost commercial appeal. Baldoni's camp, however, argued that straying too far from the novel's poignant tone would weaken the emotional impact, the very thing that made the book a bestseller. As tensions grew, the situation took a dramatic turn. Lively filed formal complaints claiming she had been sidelined in key creative decisions, alleging that Baldoni ignored her input at critical moments and left her feeling undermined. In a stunning counterattack, Baldoni fired back with a massive stack of evidence, including production logs, text messages, and meeting transcripts, suggesting that Lively had actively pushed for changes, specifically comedic rewrites and extravagant wardrobe designs meant to inject glamour into the project. The stark contrast between their stories quickly ignited a media frenzy and a scandalous legal showdown. The drama intensified when Baldoni filed a defamation lawsuit against Lively, seeking an eye-popping $400 million in damages. Hollywood was left reeling, wondering how a once promising project had spiraled so fast. At first, many expected a familiar clash between star and director, a battle of creative visions with high financial stakes. Not uncommon in Tinseltown, but the situation has now grown far beyond that. Yet the situation took an even more shocking turn. Rumors began circulating that Lively may not have simply misrepresented facts, but may have also suppressed or altered evidence while testifying. The whispers grew louder as newly uncovered documents, text messages, and even potential video recordings suggested that Lively had originally endorsed the very comedic elements and fashion-forward wardrobe choices she later publicly criticized. Industry insiders familiar with entertainment law warned that if her sworn statements contradicted her own paper trail, she could face serious charges, possibly including perjury or other forms of false representation. Although nothing has been formally confirmed, speculation continues to intensify. Social media lit up with commentary from fans, entertainment journalists, and legal experts alike. Some view the unfolding battle as a cautionary tale about the blurred lines between celebrity influence, creative control, and legal accountability, while others wonder how two highly respected professionals could see the same project in such dramatically different ways, and whether the public spectacle will ultimately overshadow the film itself. What was once an eagerly anticipated adaptation of a beloved novel has now become a stark example of how quickly Hollywood projects can spiral out of control. Between clashing artistic visions, high-profile lawsuits, and swirling allegations of evidence manipulation, the industry is watching closely as every twist, claim, and revelation unfolds. With potential criminal charges on the table, a multi-million-dollar defamation suit in play, and the public eye scrutinizing every move, both Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni now face stakes far beyond anything they could have imagined when production began. As this high-stakes drama continues to evolve, one thing is clear. What started as a celebrated creative endeavor has turned into a lightning rod for controversy, leaving Hollywood and fans alike wondering how a story meant to inspire resilience and hope could descend into such a storm of legal and public scrutiny. Behind the scenes, the personal stakes were just as intense. Lively later recalled being one of only 2 people seriously considered for the role, before getting a late-night call from her manager, who had both agents on the line, a clear sign that something major was happening. Either you got the job, or there's something serious, she remembered thinking. She also explained that she connects to her characters largely through their style, saying that what fascinated her most was discovering who Lily was through her look and wardrobe. Still, speculation ran rampant. Was Blake Lively simply crafting a sympathetic narrative for public consumption, or had she taken action serious enough to risk criminal charges? The plot thickened when a trove of communications, including emails, text messages, and meeting logs surfaced. ALLEGEDLY, showing that Lively had actively supported comedic elements and extravagant costumes from the very start of production. If these records confirm that she not only embraced jokes and punchlines, but also played a key role in selecting designer outfits for the protagonist, it would directly contradict her claims that she was pressured into those creative decisions, further intensifying the already explosive legal and public fallout. Legal experts warn that if such a discrepancy is confirmed, Lively could face perjury charges or accusations of making false statements under oath, a serious offense that, depending on the jurisdiction, could carry a prison sentence of up to 5 years. What once seemed like a far-fetched rumor about potential jail time has suddenly begun to feel uncomfortably real. Public opinion is now deeply divided. Supporters of Lively argue that, given her well-known comedic talent and flair for style, it's entirely plausible she initially endorsed those creative choices. They point out that actors often show enthusiasm for ideas during early development, only to later realize those elements don't fully align with the story's emotional core. Many also stress that a handful of text messages can't capture the full evolution of her perspective, especially if she later concluded that comedic beats or high-fashion wardrobe choices overwhelmed the narrative's emotional depth. On the other hand, supporters of Justin Baldoni see the situation very differently. They argue that Lively may have taken a significant risk by presenting herself as sidelined or marginalized in the production, potentially attempting to draw public sympathy for female actors who feel overlooked in creative settings. If evidence emerges showing that she actively promoted comedic scenes and lavish fashion from the outset, her complaint could be completely undermined, turning what she framed as a grievance into a possible fabrication. People close to Baldoni emphasize that the central issue is trust. When an actor's public brand is built on relatability and transparency, any glaring contradictions between public statements and actual production records could be devastating to her career. In a worst-case scenario, such discrepancies might even open the door to legal consequences, possibly including criminal charges, adding yet another layer of intrigue. Rumors have also surfaced, suggesting that Ryan Reynolds may have played an uncredited role behind the scenes, offering comedic input and proposing script adjustments. Lively's critics argue that she could have leaned on Reynolds' humor expertise to support lighter lines in the film, only to backtrack publicly when fans of the novel reacted negatively to leaked images that showed a tone more comedic and fashion-forward than the book's raw, authentic vibe. Could Lively have tried to distance herself from these choices, forgetting that text messages and meeting logs might contradict her version of events? That is the burning question, fueling speculation about whether she misled the court, further complicating the matter.
And both on screen and off. I've been pretending to be a man that I'm not my entire life.
Alleged leaks also suggest that other prominent figures within Lively's celebrity circle may have contributed. Ideas such as cameo appearances or comedic beats meant to soften heavier scenes. If Lively fully endorsed those suggestions and presented them to Baldoni, it would become far more difficult for her to argue that she was coerced into these creative choices. Critics contend that even if she later had second thoughts, that doesn't excuse downplaying her early involvement or misrepresenting her initial enthusiasm. Supporters of Lively, however, maintain that this controversy simply reflects shifting creative dynamics, a natural part of any film production. In the early stages, experimentation with different approaches is common. Teams often play with comedic elements and stylistic flourishes before settling into the emotional center of the story. Lively may have genuinely been excited about humorous lines or stylish costumes at first without realizing how they would accumulate and ultimately alter the film's overall tone. Nevertheless, the emerging evidence paints a picture that could dramatically reshape public perception. Early support for comedic and fashion-forward choices, once seen as harmless creative exploration, could now be reframed as calculated involvement. For fans of Baldoni, this reinforces the argument that Lively's later complaints may have been For Lively supporters, it highlights the unpredictable nature of filmmaking, where creative intentions evolve and initial enthusiasm can clash with a story's deeper emotional objectives. As this legal and public spectacle continues to unfold, the stakes are unprecedented. Lively's credibility, the integrity of the production, and the film's alignment with the beloved novel all hang in the balance. The question at the heart of the controversy remains: did Blake Lively's early excitement for certain creative choices inadvertently put her at risk, or is there a deeper misrepresentation that could carry serious consequences? Either way, the collision of celebrity, creative control, and legal scrutiny has turned this into one of the most closely watched and divisive stories in recent Hollywood history. The project eventually got picked up and performed very well, and Lively later recalled that she had been one of only 2 people seriously considered for the role. She remembered getting a late-night call from her manager and agent, both on the line at once, which immediately signaled that something serious was happening. Moments like that underscored just how high the stakes were from the very beginning. Over time, however, those comedic elements could have taken on a life of their own, gradually overshadowing the original essence of the novel. From the perspective of Lively's critics, missing or incomplete text messages might not fully capture the frustration she felt as the comedic aspects grew more dominant. They argue that these so-called smoking guns don't necessarily prove intentional deceit, but instead reflect a star caught between her creative ideas and the film's final direction. Still, the conversation keeps circling back to the potential legal consequences. A stunning twist for what began as a typical show business dispute. For Lively to realistically face the possibility of 5 years in prison, prosecutors would need solid evidence showing that she deliberately misled the court or manipulated the legal process. Legal experts emphasize that the bar for such charges is extremely high, usually requiring undeniable proof of outright falsehoods rather than simple shifts in perspective. Yet the continued circulation of prison rumors suggests that some believe the evidence may be substantial, or at least perceived as highly significant. Whether it is truly damning remains hotly debated in legal circles. Some observers speculate that the talk of prison time could be a strategic move designed to intimidate Lively. They suggest Baldoni's team might be deliberately leaking rumors about possible criminal liability to pressure her into backing down or agreeing to a settlement. In Hollywood, defamation lawsuits often end quietly with private settlements, but the threat of criminal charges adds a new and complex layer that could fundamentally alter any potential resolution. No studio or investor wants to risk a scenario where a settlement fails to shield them from further legal scrutiny. The drama has continued to escalate with fresh revelations. Documents outlining the timeline of key production meetings reportedly suggest that Lively actively participated in early script read-throughs, even brainstorming comedic moments with the writing team. Rumors also describe a particularly extravagant wardrobe, fitting that she allegedly endorsed as a bold attempt to captivate a modern audience. Critics argue that her later claim of being surprised by the comedic tone or lavish costumes directly conflicts with her apparent involvement in shaping those choices. Despite all the controversy, fans of It Ends With Us still hope the film will eventually reach theaters. The novel's devoted fan base remains deeply connected to its emotional depth, believing that comedic spin or not, the adaptation could still resonate with audiences. However, the ongoing legal battle has cast a long shadow over marketing efforts and production progress. Questions surrounding Lively's credibility, combined with the looming threat of a defamation lawsuit, have effectively brought the project to a standstill. Studios and investors, always cautious in the face of high-profile scrutiny, are reluctant to move forward without some sense of clarity or closure. Some are beginning to compare Lively's situation to other high-profile Hollywood cases where accusations of dishonesty caused lasting career damage. When a star faces allegations of misleading testimony, it's not just the current project at risk, their future work can also be jeopardized. Producers may hesitate to collaborate with someone whose involvement could tarnish a film's reputation, especially if the specter of prison time hangs overhead. The idea that a leading actor could face incarceration seems almost unfathomable in a town built on polished appearances and flawless optics. It's important to note, however, that no formal charges have been filed against Lively at this point. The legal process is notoriously slow, and both sides' legal teams likely hope to avoid a full criminal investigation if possible. Lively's attorneys have been vocal in her defense, dismissing rumors of a prison sentence as scare tactics. They maintain that she has been transparent throughout, emphasizing that any early enthusiasm for comedic or stylistic choices was simply part of a normal creative evolution that all film projects undergo. Ultimately, they argue that the project veered in a direction she found incompatible with the novel's core message. Her team also questions the context and authenticity of the evidence presented by Baldoni, noting that a single text message or brief snippet of conversation can be misleading if pulled from the broader production timeline. Nevertheless, repeated mentions of a potential 5-year sentence have led many to suspect that Baldoni's legal team is using the threat as leverage. In some jurisdictions, the maximum penalty for perjury is indeed 5 years, But whether that hypothetical maximum would ever materialize in a real courtroom remains uncertain. Only time and a court proceeding can reveal the truth. The situation grows even more complicated when considering that defamation claims focus primarily on reputational harm. Baldoni asserts that Lively's accusations of being sidelined caused significant damage to his reputation, creating a tangled intersection of personal, professional, and legal stakes that continues to intensify as the case unfolds. The dispute has transformed what was once a celebratory project into a high-stakes legal and public relations battlefield, showing just how quickly creative differences can spiral into allegations with far-reaching consequences. As the story continues to unfold, every new piece of evidence or leaked communication has the power to reshape public perception and influence the direction of the case. Lively's involvement, whether enthusiastic, misguided, or misrepresented, has placed her at the center of a storm where the line between artistic intent, personal accountability, and legal risk has grown increasingly blurred. Fans, industry insiders, and legal analysts alike are watching closely, fully aware that the implications extend far beyond a single film and could shape the reputations and careers of everyone involved. Justin Baldoni's professional standing is also on the line, as he has been portrayed by some as deliberately undermining his female lead. If new evidence emerges showing that Blake Lively not only supported but actively contributed to the comedic and fashion-forward aspects of the film, it would suggest that her claims of creative exclusion were misleading at best. Still, defamation lawsuits typically result in financial judgments, not prison sentences. The renewed talk of Lively facing criminal charges now hinges on whether her sworn testimony contradicts documented evidence, a matter separate from the defamation claim, but directly tied to how she handled the dispute. Sources close to the situation suggest that intense settlement talks may already be underway, with both sides eager to avoid potentially damaging evidence being aired in open court. Lively could opt to settle to sidestep a deeper investigation into her testimony, while Baldoni might push for a significant payout, possibly using the threat of additional revelations to support or partially justify his staggering $400 million defamation claim.
Mother who had a real life experience like this, she was Lily Bloom. And I just thought if this could affect me in this way, then I can only imagine.
Each side must carefully weigh the risks of a prolonged legal battle, knowing that a public trial filled with cross-examinations and relentless scrutiny of contradictory messages could severely damage reputations on both sides. The prospect of a 5-year prison sentence has become a rallying cry for critics, who believe Lively exaggerated her original claims, serving as a stark reminder that attempts to manipulate public sympathy can carry serious consequences when the truth emerges. For Lively supporters, however, the threat feels more like an intimidation tactic, a disproportionate response designed to pressure her into backing down. They argue that even if she overstated some frustrations, that falls far short of a crime deserving incarceration. Ultimately, what unfolds may depend entirely on whether the rumored evidence is as damning as Baldoni's camp claims. If text messages and production logs clearly prove that Lively intentionally fabricated her story, her legal troubles could escalate dramatically. Conversely, if those communications are open to interpretation or simply reflect fleeting enthusiasm, playful remarks, or genuine creative experimentation, she may be able to avoid severe consequences. At the heart of the controversy is whether her complaints stem from a misunderstanding of how the comedic elements developed or from a calculated attempt to tarnish Baldoni's reputation. Amid the swirling speculation, some level-headed voices within the industry caution that stories about potential prison time often surface in high-profile lawsuits but rarely materialize. Their advice is to wait for official court statements or verified documentation before drawing conclusions, emphasizing that headlines about a Hollywood star facing jail are more likely to stoke public curiosity than reflect actual legal realities. That said, growing buzz from sources close to the case suggests that Lively's legal situation may indeed be serious, even if the likelihood of a full-blown criminal trial remains uncertain. Meanwhile, the film itself is effectively stuck in limbo. Studios are hesitant to move forward with post-production or marketing while daily news cycles continue to dissect Lively's credibility. Every new report, leaked email, or snippet from a meeting transcript becomes fuel for speculation, slowing the momentum of a project that once promised a powerful emotional impact. Baldoni, for his part, has largely stayed out of the spotlight, issuing only occasional statements that underscore his commitment to honoring the essence of the novel. The lingering question is whether the film's reputation can ever be fully repaired, or whether a shadow of scandal will follow it indefinitely. Audiences may ultimately find themselves more captivated by the real-life drama behind the scenes than by the story unfolding on screen. The persistent rumors of a 5-year prison sentence, whether they eventually become reality or fade into gossip, highlight the fragile nature of Hollywood collaborations. In an era where every email, text message, and meeting note is preserved and potentially weaponized in court, even a single misstep can carry far-reaching consequences. While the ultimate truth remains tangled in uncertainty, one fact is clear: The stakes for Blake Lively have never been higher. What began as an opportunity to bring a beloved novel to life has now thrust her into the center of a storm, raising questions not just about her credibility, but about her very freedom. The fallout also places the future of a film that once promised a deeply moving experience at significant risk, even as the legal and public relations battles rage on. The situation underscores a broader truth about the industry. Fame and influence can quickly collide with accountability. A misaligned narrative, perceived dishonesty, or simple miscommunication can escalate into threats of financial ruin or even criminal exposure. For Lively, navigating these treacherous waters now requires not only a careful legal strategy, but close attention to public perception and to how every documented interaction is interpreted. As the world watches, the outcome could reshape how Hollywood handles disputes between creative vision and star power. If the evidence clearly contradicts Lively's claims, it could serve as a cautionary tale for actors, directors, and studios alike. Alternatively, if the facts reveal a more nuanced evolution of the film's creative choices, it may reinforce just how complex collaborative storytelling can be. Regardless, one thing is certain: every stakeholder, from fans to executives, will be paying close attention to each new development, knowing that the line between professional disagreement and potential criminal exposure has never felt so thin. For now, the shadow of possible prison time looms large, serving as a stark reminder that in Hollywood, reputation, accountability, and legal responsibility are deeply intertwined. What began as a celebrated adaptation has evolved into a high-stakes examination of honesty, influence, and the consequences of perceived misrepresentation, with both Lively and Baldoni navigating a path that could ultimately define the rest of their careers.